Hello and welcome everybody back to another episode of Spotlight Hour. Today we are joined by our guest, Christian Frederick. Kristen, welcome to the podcast. Super happy and stoked to have you here.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here as well.
So anybody who doesn't know about you, give us a brief intro here. Tell us who
Huh,
you are.
uh, sure. My name is Christin Frederick, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California. I've been in practice just short of 10 years. Came into the field midlife. I had spent my early career, I joined the Marine Corps out of high school. And then I went into finance, and I had my Series 7 license and was a registered sales assistant for several high-end brokers. Um, I transitioned from sales into family life. So I have 3 children, and my children have really dictated the course of my career. So family's always been centered, and when it came to the point where I kind of felt a little lost, I had not been a great salesperson. I'm very relatable and relationship centered, but um that edge of closing and, reeling in deals is not in my personality, but I adopted, and was trained in what was called consultative sales. So it was a lot about understanding people's needs and how our product could meet their needs, and so it was very relationship based. So I discovered that I have such a heart for relationships, and as my family got more complicated through divorce and remarriage and step parenting, it just felt so evident that as I was drawn into these complex dynamics, I loved it. It wasn't stressful. It lit me up. I loved like the complexity of it. And so I decided when I was 37 to go to grad school at Pacifica Graduate Institute in Carpinteria, California, study depth psychology and get my license. And that's what I did.
That's such a really interesting story because you went and tried a bunch of different things. Your
Yes.
experiences are all over the board and you bring so much to the table. There's so many ways that you can connect and relate with everybody that you work with.
Yes, that's part of what I it's part of what I how I stand out as a therapist is the depth of life experience that I bring. So I have been in the military. I'm a veteran. I have been married and divorced twice. I have been widowed. I have been a stepmom. I've co-parented. Like I've done all of these very difficult and complex relationships and feel like I've bring a breadth of experience to my practice.
I think you definitely do. So what was the journey for you like after you finished up grad school? Where did you go after that?
Yeah, so, oh, I also am a humanist by nature. That's my, orientation, therapeutically. So that means I really use myself and my relational style. So the reason I mention that is because I am a person that experienced high functioning anxiety. So I use anxiety or have used it. I've healed quite a bit since, but at that point, anxiety was fueling me. And so I got through grad school in 2 years. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I looked at like the licensing requirements for each category that you had to have a checkbox in, like so many hours of group, so many hours of individual, so many hours of family, so many hours of child therapy. And I chose a internship that would help me maximize getting that done. So I worked 40 hours a week. I never missed group supervision. I got my like hours checked like literally like 2 years to the month of when I entered my associate program. So I studied and passed my exam the first time. Like, I was just driven. And so it, it it tested me in so many different ways because the agency that I chose, was supported by Medi-Cal, which requires very intense and very lengthy documentation. So, much like the relationships that I loved to have, like, the therapy part was amazing and the training was incredible, but the growing edge was staying on top of, um non-preferred tasks, as we say in the ADHD world, like, non-preferred tasks were my nemesis, and so that's where I grew. I had to learn how to apply all the tools so that I could get that done, and I did.
Did you have a mentor that kind of helped, you know, put everything down like a roadmap for you? Or was this just like your hardcore, like, discipline kicking in saying, "Okay, I'm gonna take control of this. I know exactly what I need to do here. I'm gonna figure out everything I don't know, and I'm gonna make this happen."
Yes. Yeah. I did not have a mentor, and I did just use all the resources that are online. Everything's pretty laid out in California. The roadmap's pretty clear to licensure. And I will say that at Pacifica Graduate Institute, the support in the placement process of getting your traineeship and then supporting you in getting your internship once you graduate was extraordinary. So in that way, I did feel very supported, but I pretty much knew the where I needed to go, and they kind of helped point the direction of where that thing was. Like, "Try this and try that, and here's something." And just the support of, um, how difficult it can be to find those traineeships and those internships that match your needs, match your schedule, match your family, dynamics, and there's just a lot of weight on that decision. So that was great to have the support of the school and the departments that offered that.
So, after your internship with this agency, did you go straight out and just launch your first private practice?
I did. Yeah, I did a little bit of overlap. I mean, I started with BetterHelp, so that was, like, my first attempt at, um, providing private practice care outside of an agency, so it still wasn't quite, like, generating my own business, because they still fed leads, so it was, like, a little bit of a training wheel, process to transition from agency work to private practice, and I did BetterHelp at the same time as my agency work, so it was just, like, a little bit of a transition, but it wasn't long, because our community really, has a a deficiency in child therapists. I was able to book my private practice caseload with referrals from the agency that I was working at, because the agency I was working at focused on adoption and kin care support, and also for foster families. So I just had a lot of exposure to family based need. And then I made a name for myself at the agency and then got referrals from that. So it was fast. Yeah.
That sounds very, very fast, but it also sounds like the perfectly planned, path, like the best segue you could have taken, working with an agency like that, focusing on that specialty, and then building out that referral network as you go. While also you said you were working with BetterHelp at the same time as you were in the agency, which kind of let you play like both sides and get some like hands-on training with more private practice style work than agency style work.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. It was a smooth transition, I have to say, and at that time, I did have, um, my family. I had a blended family of 7 kids, and, um, my now late husband was such a support, like, that meant everything, and so, financially, I didn't really even take a hit, like, financially, it just kind of I planned out, okay, the cost of my office will be this, and so this is how many clients I need to see to cover that cost. And so I kind of broke it down like step by step in terms of making sure that I wasn't adding um any weight to my budget without also adding revenue. And so that was pretty I was pretty strategic in that way.
That's very, very strategic. That's a very pragmatic way to look at this. Were you only taking private pay clients at the time, or were you also
Yeah.
accepting insurance?
I've only taken private pay clients up until 2023. And I never really have handled myself. I have used one of the many um large national I don't know if I can say grow therapy is the company that I have contracted with. And so through them I now accept insurance, but that was short-lived because it just um was more difficult and more work for less money, and that just from a business perspective just didn't make a lot of sense.
It really doesn't, does it?
It doesn't.
That's one of the things. Everybody that we talk to, private pay is the way. It lets you be able to earn what you're worth, not get nickeled and dimed and get, 25, $35 an hour like you would if you're working on BetterHelp.
Yes.
And it lets you have a little bit more control over your own schedule and your pay as well.
Yes.
It lets you run your business, your
Yes.
practice.
And that's the thing that was for me a big part of in addition to being very relationship based and like that being at the heart of my purpose, having had experience working for other entrepreneurs, like other financial advisors very early in my career, and then when I was doing business development, I was supporting other people's entrepreneurship. And so I the seed was planted early that I really wanted to have my own business and I really wanted to offer something that was in line with my passion. So I had some business development experience going in, and this was kind of like the vehicle for me to kind of have my dream come true of owning my own business.
So, on that note, I really wanna kind of dive into that point about viewing your practice as a business, because not everybody does. Not every therapist does, and that's completely understandable. You guys
Sure.
go to school for so many years, you learn how to be kind of this, like, guiding light for people, help them better their lives, better your community, and then how much are you taught about running a business?
Yeah, 0.
It's a big fat 0. There's absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
there's no structure, there's no support there, and so it's hard to view it as a business sometimes when you're starting
Yeah.
your practice, if especially if nobody's given you that framing before. This is how you should look at it. This is what it means to own a business.
Yes.
So, kind of like a simple version of, like, the big questions I wanna ask you because there's so many, um, but what would you kind of recommend or say would be the most valuable impacts of viewing your practice as a business when you were starting it, that are things that other people who are going through the same journey can try to focus on as well and think about if they haven't already.
Sure, sure. So I think looking at the practice through the lens of a business um actually offers a little relief from the anxiety of um being inundated with relational dynamics constantly. It's a nice shift away from having that part of your brain just be on all the time and concerned about people's needs and supporting them and how can you offer this intervention or that intervention and so using your practice as a vehicle to kind of shift your mindset away from that offers some space between your therapeutic world and your offer some space from your therapeutic world which you can get burned out really easily. So it's a nice vehicle to like give you something else to chew on, so to speak. And so I really appreciate it from that perspective. um I also appreciate it from the perspective of um having a responsibility and freedom. So it's like it's all on me. I'm the only one that I'm accountable to, and my clients' satisfaction is what I'm committed to. And so that's one of my most favorite parts of being in private practice is I have to be concerned, obviously, with code of ethics and all of the framework. But other than that, there aren't the artificial structures in place at agencies or group practices or other ways when you have to work under someone else's vision. And I get to hold myself accountable to me, my business, and my clients. And that just feels amazing.
It's a liberating feeling, isn't it? Being able to set your own structures, build out your own ecosystem, and run your business how you want, how you see best fit. And it allows you to deliver better service for your clients. It allows you to deliver a better quality of life to yourself in some cases too. It's not for everybody, but for the people it is for, it makes a huge difference when you commit to it.
I would also say that um, so much of what we share with our clients is about how can you find a way to process difficult emotions, experiences, trauma. And oftentimes the answer is through creativity and to have an outlet that is a creative outlet. And so many times we fall to like art or writing or some other like expressive art to meet that creativity. But truly, like my business has been that for me. Like, it's my creative outlet. Like, I've tried so many different, perspectives and ways of marketing and really what I love about being creative in that space is I get to look at how I want to deliver services. Who am I as a therapist when I am working on my business, not just in my business, but on my business and trying to figure out how I can create a message that resonates, I have to be really in my integrity. And so it's a creative process that allows me to do that. And so again, it's just kind of like a nice little departure away from the therapeutic work and a little bit of a break so that burnout isn't so likely.
So, for people who are, like, listening to this and they're like, "This is really just resonating with me. I love everything she's saying,"
Yeah.
but they don't have the same kind of background, right? Because I don't know anyone else who has the same background as you. I'll be honest. You are one of a kind. Through Marine Corps, through working in finance, to everything else, to being here.
Yeah.
For the people who haven't had that background, that experience, are there any tools, books, courses, anything like that that comes to mind that would be kind of a good teaching moment? Or
Yes. Yes. One of the um one of my favorite books is, E-Myth Revisited.
I thought that's the book you were grabbing. It looked
Yeah,
familiar.
by Michael Gerber, and so this talks about an entrepreneur's life and the myths, and so it helps with the mindset and it helps with the framework of, how to shift yourself from, like, the craftsman, the art of delivering therapy to honing your business skills. And it's not so specific in terms of the actual skills, but it's definitely a great introduction to how do I shift away from being the specialist that I am to being an entrepreneur. And so that was a great book. And then Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce have so many wonderful skill development, like business skill development offerings. And our chamber, both in San Luis Obispo and in Atascadero, are really geared towards supporting new businesses. And so they have like lots of great nuts and bolts workshops on the steps that you need to take, like getting your business license and opening a business checking account, and like the structure that will support your business.
The really flashy fun stuff.
Yeah, the fun stuff, and then secondly, simple practice. The EHR is so business oriented. It has so many wonderful reports. It helps me keep up on my revenue and the sources of my revenue and the sources of my referrals. Like, it's a really strong business tool.
That's what would you say, was your one of your favorite lessons from E-Myth? If there's one that stands out.
Oh my gosh.
Which, by the way, what do you think of the answer? I'll tell everyone listening. We're gonna put a link to this book down below in the description here,
Mhm.
and little plug for thrift books as well. We're not sponsored by them or anything, but this is my favorite place to get books from.
Totally. Yes, I love that. You know, I nothing is coming to mind. Here's the thing about that that's so funny is I am such a big picture thinker. Like, I will read something and I will grasp the concepts, and then those concepts will be mine. But the details of how I got there, like, elude me. So I'm just gonna say read the book. It's so good.
It is a really, really great book. I can attest that. I read that on in the first year that we started this company, and I actually reread it again a couple years ago.
Yes.
And, seeing it now, I wanna pick it back up and read it over this weekend.
Yes. Yeah. It's a quick read, it's not long, and it's impactful. And it did its job for me, which made the impression that it needed to make, and, um, I'm I don't know, cursed or blessed that I let go of the details. I'm not sure however you wanna look at it, but, it's a good book.
So, Kristen, you've learned a lot of things over these last few years.
Yeah.
Reading books, having access to courses off the line, obviously, no mentors, but having access to that many people within this industry as it's so tight knit. If you could go back to you in grad school, what are
Yeah.
three things you'd tell yourself?
Um, there is no way that you are gonna do all of this reading. And that's okay. This is a reference list for the entirety of your career. So hold on to the reading lists and circle back, because it's like being in grad school is like being fire hosed with this massive amount of information, and it all feels fascinating and amazing. And it is. So let go um of the anxiety to, like, absorb it all at the time, but hold on to the reference list so that you can go back and circle back when, the smoke clears. That was 1. 3? Okay, so what? Let's see, what else? Um, keep in touch with your, cohort. Those are the people that you made a transformation with, and in Pacifica, it truly is a transformation. It felt like 2.5 years of, like, therapy, intensive therapy. It's truly, um, honing the instrument for a therapist is your own heart and soul and your own way of being in the world. And so in grad school, that was so much a part of what the experience was. One obviously learning theory and learning how to practice and all of those important skills, but also stripping away, and healing and processing as much kind of psychic debris as you can so that when you sit with a client, you have as clean of a container as you can. And that process with those people is like priceless. And so staying in touch with your cohort, they were the ones with you, like in on the mat, in the blood, in the dirt, on the map as you were like rising strong, like they're important. And then third, hmm,
put you on the spot here, didn't I?
Oh, that's okay. Um, Honing your writing skills, especially going into internship, is important because a lot of people will go into internship in agencies. And so clinical writing becomes essential. So multiple page assessments, like multiple page treatment plans that need to be renewed every 6 months. Like the writing is arduous. So take it seriously when you're in grad school, like hone your technical writing and don't get too butthurt when the comments on your APA formatting are like constant. Like it matters. And from someone who lacks an eye for detail, I got butthurt a lot, but it's important.
I want to start saying that word "but" hurt a lot more often now. Oh,
The revival as like,
that's really so. Well, so from grad school, taking all those lessons into account, and obviously, getting to the level where you are now, you defined a niche you wanted to work with, right? After working with so many people, especially in your area in California, where companies are starting up every day.
yeah.
Your specific niche is high performing, high achieving entrepreneurs, small business owners, and obviously families.
Yeah.
Given that your business perspective, obviously your experience working in several industries, what led you to want to work specifically with high performers?
Yeah, their needs are so masked and their suffering is so masked because high performers, if they are coming to me for therapy, are generally have like adrenal fatigue, they're not sleeping, they're using all kinds of methods to distract and numb, but those methods now have come to an end and they are now agitated and can't find a peaceful mind. And it's a level of suffering that goes undetected for a really long time because the way that they have managed it is to pour themselves into achievement. So each time you get anxious and then you go work 10 more hours, you're going to get reinforced. Like that's a reinforced behavior in our society. Like, yes, do that. Awesome. And yet your nervous system has been neglected, your entire body has been neglected because we teach in our society produce at all costs, and the cost is the mind body connection. I mean, I used to pride myself on the fact that I did not have to go to the bathroom an entire workday. Like, that's not okay. Happens. That is a disassociation between my mind and my body where I've stopped listening to really important signals. And so that's why it's a very um uh it's in a very invisible state of suffering until it's not. And then families fall apart and marriages fall apart and you don't understand why because you did all the right things. You checked all the boxes. You did all the self-help. You learned how to manage your time. You learned how to strategize through this. But all of that takes you away from your internal guidance system, which is the mind body spirit connection.
I want to say two things. The first one, I think hyper focus plays a huge role in this. Once you start getting into your zone, you only focus on work, work, work. You don't really notice that, you're completely shutting off your external environment.
Yes.
And obviously that's what matters most, right? You're not just alone in this world. You're in your little box and that's it, right? Having ADHD, I think, is very, plays a big role in that space.
Yeah.
And the second thing, I used to have competitions with the people I knew about when was the last time I ate, when was the last time I had something to drink. It's like, well, I didn't eat anything for, I don't know, 11, 12 hours. How about you?
Totally. I was
Being
the
proud of all those things,
fire.
right? Yeah. And now when you recognize it in the hindsight, you're just like, I really wasn't doing all right, was I?
Yeah, 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 totally. Well, it kind of in a nutshell, it's like our emotional data is muted when we do that. And we need that emotional data to inform us of what is important to us, what is making us happy, what is fulfilling and satisfying. And our bodies are um the vehicles for emotional data. We feel through sensations. When you get excited or nervous about something, you get butterflies in your stomach. Like, that's a sensation that has a feeling and emotion that's attached to it. And so that's an important piece of information. And so when you get hyper focused and then get very skilled at disconnecting yourself from the signals of your body, you get rewarded. That's wonderful. There's an upside, um, but it comes at a cost. And the cost is oftentimes our physical health eventually, but first our relationships and our emotional well-being. And yeah, it's sometimes it feels like a race to the bottom. Like, at first, it feels like a race to the top, but truly, when you take a holistic approach at living, it truly is a race to the bottom.
So, Kristen, I've got a few questions for you based off that because it's a topic very, very close and personal to me. My brother, who I actually started this whole business and journey with, he went through the same thing where he got hyper focused, and it took him to some very dark places.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, how can we better attune ourselves to those triggers and emotions that we receive from our environment and that our body is physically giving us? Not just that, but the second step of it is, how can we kind of better tune ourselves to know what those feelings mean? What emotions those are truly tied to? Because a lot of people who are going through this kind of thing after being hyper focused on something, specifically their work, they'll get those emotions, they'll get those feelings, those instincts. Like, no, not today. Next.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the skill is to be able to do two things at once, which as high producers, we can do two things at once. You just have to choose the things. So you can be an observer of what is happening outside of you, and you can be an observer of what's happening inside of you at the same time. And it's called an internal witness. So you develop your internal witness so that you can be integrating the information from your external world into your internal world all the time instead of putting blinders on and just paying attention to what's happening on the outside. So it's a skill to develop. It's kind of like through calming your mind and through reconnecting to your body. So, any kind of somatic work is so great, like getting massages with the intention of paying attention to how does this feel when this part of my body is touched, or how does it feel when this part of my neck relaxes. And what you'll find that's amazing is once the armor, because that's what happens, is we get armored. Um, Literally, like our muscular tension creates an armor that keeps our feeling state away from our awareness. So when that armor comes off through relaxation, meditations, intentional de-armoring, then you get the emotions that come up and you need help recognizing what they mean and how they can be used to your benefit. Because if you are a high achieving um, entrepreneur type person, you have probably done that strategy most of your life. So it's it's a skill deficit to not know how to use that information. And getting therapy is one of the best ways to figure it out.
Well, it sounds like you just gave us a nice free quick initial consultation for your service. Very, very well said. Obviously, being equipped with all these tools is great in this day and age where everything is online. You're consistently focused. You have only your screen in front of you. And speaking about only having your screen in front of you, you started as an in-person therapist and you transitioned into only teletherapy. And then now you're doing both service offerings at the moment.
Yes.
What was that transition to like to you? And would you do it again?
Yeah. So, the transition was not difficult because the BetterHelp, experience that I had right after my internship, like, honed me and prepared me for telehealth. And so I had a comfort level with telehealth right away. And I had the direct experience that establishing rapport and trust and a relational field with a client over telehealth was something that I could do. And so I had comfort with that right away. Um, so telehealth has always been a part of my practice. So when I was in person, mostly, it was like 90% in person, 10% telehealth. And then I decided that I had some personal stuff happen in my life and I needed a healing journey of my own. So I wanted to take advantage of the mobility of telehealth, and so I took my practice online. I had many clients who agreed to continue online who were normally seeing me in person. And then I had a good caseload of clients already online. And then I lost a few when I transitioned 100% online. And then I traveled Costa Rica for a year. And so it was amazing. I felt so, free, and it felt like, a good strategy to have that flexibility, whether it be for travel or for supporting, like, an aging parent. It doesn't really matter, like, going online is offers a way to maintain your livelihood while you have to be in a different place for whatever reason. And so I just felt really fortunate to have had that experience. Um, it was difficult. What I found was the practice building online was much harder than the practice building in person. And so what I was relying on, and I kind of knew this actually from a business perspective, starting my practice in 2019, right? Like as the pandemic was starting, it was like stepping into a rushing river of business. 'Cause, like I didn't really need to do any of the things to build my business. Um, and I took it for granted that I could do that and just shift online. And so what I would say is that um, building an online practice that is reliant and you want to broaden your reach beyond your personal network, it takes a methodical strategy and it takes a decent investment and it takes a a willingness to apply a lot of time and energy to business development and not just delivering services.
I think it also goes into account for being deliberate with all of your actions, right? You have to have a purpose for all these things that you're doing. Obviously, during COVID, everyone knew it was time. Rushing river, clients are coming. This is going to be perfect. I'm going to be snapping my fingers, and it's not going to be going like this. All of a sudden, COVID is not a thing anymore, and all of a sudden, there's a lot of competition out there. People are starting to do other things, websites to marketing, SEO, starting to learn so many things. Where uh, you know, it's good that today's day and age, you have a lot of resources out there. But if you don't know about a certain thing, you feel limited in a
You
certain
feel
way.
limited, yeah. You have to hire expertise, truly. I mean, unless so to go from, personal networking to online marketing is a dramatic learning curve, and, if you need to keep your livelihood, um, growing and stable through that transition, it is worth every dime to invest in expertise. It just is, because unless that is a natural skill set for you, and even if it is, it takes so much time. So it's just it I can't say enough about how valuable expertise was. And so I will just also offer my gratitude for your guys' services because truly I learned so much, and it was so valuable to me.
Well, thank you for that. That was very nice of you.
Mm. No, it's true. And it's like it's a world of a foreign language, truly, and not only foreign language, but foreign threats. Like there are things lurking around corners. I didn't even know there were corners in the internet world, but there were. And so to have expert support in identifying the threats and managing them and being proactive to avoid them, it truly it's so important.
Well, that is what we're here for.
Yes. And it's
Kristen,
good.
thank you so much for taking the time to hop on here with us today. I think this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I know I've enjoyed it, and I can't imagine anybody listening to this with an empty notepad at this point. Everybody who's listened has gotten a few things out of this. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on here, share your story, share your experience and your wisdom with us and with everybody else.
Thank you for creating the platform and also offering the space to help therapists like me navigate the difficult world of online marketing. It is a blessing. So thank you.
It is our honor. This is we love what we do for the reasons of being able to help and work with people just like you.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen. Until next time.
Yes.